people are still. Thank you, Emma Beth, for starting the recording. We will be sharing this. Okay, thanks. I was just going to introduce Emma Beth, but she's going to be signing
I'm
up.
sorry. Okay, yeah,
Okay.
I won't be here very long.
Okay. She's our operations specialist for the Fairfax League, and she's definitely the secret ingredient in the sauce that helps us do a lot of what it is we are organizing. So I'm very appreciative of her helping get the recording and all that going, and so we can share this. This session today was originally intended to be a kind of informational program for our voter registration volunteers for the Fairfax League to work in senior residences. And then in talking about this with some of the sister leagues around the state, there was an interest in other leagues sitting in on this. So this session today is going to serve two purposes. It will be to give all the information that the voter registration volunteers who are actually working at these events will need, but it's also to give a little bit of how we're doing it. And by no means am I saying that this is like the way to do it, but it's just something that we found has worked well for us in Fairfax County. So we have about 30 people or so, I think, on the call tonight. It may be questions we can hold at the end, but also please make a note of any suggestions or ideas. I'm a big believer in group sourcing ideas for how to do things well, and we're always open to new ideas. Just by way of introduction, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Marina Van Breda, and I have been the director for voter registration for the Fairfax League for the last 4 years. I'm kind of slowly transitioning out of that, but right now I'm still actively involved in setting up our events and doing our training. The senior residence program outreach that we have is something that we've been building on over several years, and it's become both a very successful program for us and a fairly logistically challenging one. So again, the idea is to try to give you some of the things that we found have worked for us. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. I don't mean to be just talking in a vacuum to you, but we do have materials that we wanted to share, and I've just figured doing it by slides would be the easiest. Again, write any questions that you have in the chat, and because I don't have anybody monitoring this for me, I will get to those kind of as we get to the end of this. So everybody can see my screen, I trust, right? Can everybody see my screen? Anyone? Yes. I'm getting it. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
It's okay. Actually, it's a good point, though. If you have dogs or spouses or kids running around in the background that are going to make noise, please just mute yourself so it doesn't interfere. So as I said, we've been doing this for several years. And I've divided this discussion up into the several components that I think make the most sense. And the first part is the planning part of it, which we start actually in the spring. We have a conversation with our registrar's office. We started doing these events because the registrar's office, which had an active outreach to senior residences, I don't know about in your part of the state, but in the Fairfax area, this is one of the biggest growth industries there are. I mean, there are senior residences going up everywhere. And in Fairfax County, because we cover a large geographic area, we have over 100. We've got lots, and there are more showing up every week. The registrar's office used to have a program where they would go to the residences that requested assistance, but they could not handle the volume. They started turning to us, which we thought was a very nice vote of confidence in our ability to do that. And it also was a very rewarding, if challenging, activity for our volunteers to do. It does require special skill sets, or at least some little tricks and nuances that don't show up in your average voter registration event. And that's why part of the reason for this evening's class. for those leagues who have not yet started doing this or are planning to start a senior residence outreach, I strongly recommend, we found it extremely helpful to let our registrar's office know that we are going to be doing this and that we stand by willing, ready, and able to help. If they have requests that they can't handle, we make sure that they have approved our materials and that they're happy with what it is we're doing. And that's worked extremely well. We have a couple of volunteers who are very willing to do things on computer or from home, who can't do active presence at registration events, and they, kind souls that they are. And we have both, for the Fairfax League, Sherry Gillum and Sydney Johnson deserve a huge vote of thanks because they actually went through the work of compiling the list as updated as possible of all our residences, and then contacted as many as they could to get the names and emails and phone numbers for what they're usually called activities director. They may have fancier titles, but most senior residences, and I'm calling them senior residences, but we're also extending this discussion. It does cover rehabilitation facilities and nursing homes. So it's kind of a whole range of different organizations. But Sydney and Sherry got the list together, and then we sent out an email to all of the residences where we could have reliable contact information. And I think I shared this in the email that I sent out with the Zoom link last night. But this is the email that we have sent to everyone, or to all of the organizations, just reminding them that there is another election this year, that we are willing and able to help them, that we work with the registrar's office, that all of our volunteers are certified by the state, and kind of giving them a little bit of a sense of what it is we can do. Now, for those who have worked with us before, they're extremely plugged in and they know. But for a lot of the people who have these jobs, they may not necessarily be citizens themselves or voters themselves, or they may come from a different jurisdiction, Maryland or DC. So they may not be clued in on the fact that there's an election in Virginia. So we try to give them the basics and then give them someone to contact. It's been me, but someone to contact so they can schedule their events. In the past, we had done these events primarily in the fall, in the lead up to the election. However, what we found is our fall schedule has gotten so crazy packed. And last year we had 26 different residences that we helped out at, that if we wait and do them all in the fall, it just gets too crazy. We were doing 2 a day, and that's a lot. So we decided, why not use the hot weather when it's too hot to be doing outdoor events? And we don't have a lot of festivals, and we're doing more of our senior residences now in the summer months because at least it's air conditioned and it's a little bit cooler. After they contact us, and we've already, just with our first email blast, we've had over 10 residences already scheduled for the end of this month. And I expect we're going to do another blast email to the ones who haven't responded. And between that and what we hear from the registrar's office, we'll probably be adding on a good number more. Then we try to assess what it is the residents need. We find out, do we have the right person? And if not, please give us the updated email. Find out what their needs are. Are they mostly assisted living? Are they independent living? Do they have people in memory care? Because dealing with memory care voters is very challenging, and that is a whole different kettle of fish. We generally try to avoid working in the memory care units because of the questionable legal status. Now, if somebody is a qualified to be able to register to vote and does request it, or a family requests it, we obviously will do that. We also want to know, are these people mostly mobile, or are they going to be bedbound? Most of the time we ask them to come to a single location in the facility, but there are times in the rehabilitation or nursing homes where we're actually going room to room. We then schedule at a time where it's good for them and good for us. We try to ask them, please do not schedule us on a day when you have a lot of people going out to other activities, because we're probably not going to have time to make a second trip. So that helps. We then always send a flyer to the resident activities coordinator. And this will have the information that every one of their residents needs. And we say, please print it, share it electronically, put it in your newsletter, whatever. We also make sure that the activity directors know that we're going to need several tables or several different workstations with chairs, and if at all possible, Wi-Fi access, because we are going to be trying to do as much of this online as we can. This is a sample of the type of flyer that goes to every residence prior to our visit. It gives them exactly who we are, what we're going to be doing, where we will be meeting in the facility, the date and the time. And trust me, there's no way you can remind people often enough. They're going to have to bring their social security number, and if they have a Virginia DMV issued ID, to bring it, ideally. And we tell the activity director, please remind your residents, make sure they have their social security number, make sure they bring their documentation with them. And then it's still hit or miss. But by sending this flyer out and encouraging them to share that with anybody who's interested, we get a better turnout and a little bit easier work for us at the event, because hopefully they're going to be prepared. We also ask the resident directors or the activities directors to please make sure your family members, families of seniors, are aware of this. So they're not wondering, what is this I heard from my mother that somebody came and asked for her voter information? We want the families, involved as well. We also tell the activities director, if you have any staff who are Virginia residents and not your registered vote, obviously we'll register anybody. Okay. So we've done all that, and now we're going to make sure we're training, recruiting and training our volunteers. That's what tonight's all about. Make sure you've got somebody responsible for assembling all of the materials. You're going to hear me talking a lot about, it says senior receipts. And I'm going to show you what that is a little bit later on in the presentation. But this is a very important, I think, key to our success. So you just want to make sure whoever it is, if you're from a non-Fairfax league, you make sure that you have something like this available when you do, because you're going to find it really comes in handy. Laptops, normally when we're doing voter registration events, we may have somebody with an iPad, but for these events, we try to have at least one or two volunteers that are comfortable using laptops and are willing to use their laptop for this purpose. We do try to get Wi-Fi access at all of our sites, but anything that we can do online is a much more efficient way of getting voters ready to vote than having to do paper forms. Okay. So on the day of the event, one of the things we learned is if you give, and many of us, me too, I'm a senior citizen, so I'm not talking out of school, I'm talking about my age group. You give them a date and time for an event, they're going to show up, and they're going to show up chomping at the bit. We have walked into an event with 50 people sitting in a room, and they're all going to want to be helped immediately, which is a little bit of a problem when you've only got 3 or 4 or 5 volunteers. That's why we find out ahead of time, how many people do they think we're going to be helping? So I always ask the volunteer or the activities folks, how many new residents? Because it's the new people who have moved in within the last year who are really going to need us the most. People who have been there for years and years, if they're voters, they're probably all set. So find out how many new, I try to get a guesstimate as to how many people we're going to help. If you have a large crowd, and 50 is not unheard of at some of our larger facilities, I try to get one volunteer whose job is basically hand out numbers, just like at the bakery. You get a number and someone's going to help you. That person is also going to remind the voter, do you have your documents? Do you have your social security number? Do you have your driver's license? If not, you got time, go to your room, get it. Because that's going to make the rest of the work a lot easier. So that person is giving out numbers and is kind of the flow manager. We divide the workstations up, or the tables up, to people who are able to do the laptop work, highly helpful, or people who are just doing the papers. We have a new thing for those of you who have worked these events with Fairfax before, and that is we're keeping a list of the names of everybody that we assist. Now, normally with paper voter registration forms, obviously, we've got the paper voter registration forms that we're submitting to the registrar, so we keep a list of that. But with absentee ballot applications, we don't necessarily have a written list of those. And if you're helping people online, you don't have records of that. And what we have found is that there have been instances where people say, I talked to someone about voting, and they think we registered them or we got them a absentee ballot. And then I get a call from the activities director saying our people didn't get their absentee ballots. This has happened, and it put me in a panic. And then we tracked it down, and it turned out that they weren't people that we actually assisted. But this way, you can, if there's any question at all, you can quickly look and say, on this date, we helped this person, and I will show you what that form looks like. But for those of you working with us this year, every volunteer will have a little log sheet, and when somebody comes to sit down, you're going to help them. First thing you do, just write down their name. At the end of the visit, you just check the boxes. What did I do for them? And that way, we're going to have that. Obviously, most of these are in activity rooms, coffee, cafes or things like that. We are dealing with people's social security numbers. We try to respect privacy as much as possible. A lot of people are hard of hearing. You are going to have to yell a little bit, but we try to be at least as careful and respectful as we can. One thing that we've learned very early on, and all of this information, we have run it through the registrars and they agree with us. If somebody's handwriting is not clearly legible, ask them, may I help you with the form? It is perfectly okay at their direction for you to fill out their voter registration form and their absentee ballot application. It's going to speed the process for you. It's going to speed the process for them. And it's also going to end up with something that is legible. The only thing is that whenever you're assisting somebody, they have to actually take responsibility, legal responsibility that the information is correct, and they have to sign. It can be an X, it can be a very shaky handwriting, and trust me, we've seen everything, but as long as they're able to do it, you are absolutely fully legally empowered to be able to fill out the rest of the form for them. So this is a fairly typical situation that we have at our events, several different workstations, a little bit separated to have that privacy, people with laptops, people working just with paper, and again, we're try to keep the flow going, but respect people's privacy. So this is the new form that we're going to be using this year. Another several dozen trees are going to come down. Where we'll have the name of the residence, the date of the event, the volunteer's name. If there's a question afterwards, whoever's the voter registration director can quickly find out, okay, there was an issue with someone you helped, and contact that volunteer. And then you can see it's just going to allow you to write the name of the resident and just a little checkbox. What did you do? Did you register online? Did you register them on paper? Did you give them an absentee ballot? Do it online, do it on paper. And this way we've got just a little bit of better record of who we've helped. Now, this is the flow sheet or the flow chart of how I think it's easiest to picture how we're going to be helping folks. The first question, after you introduce yourself, and I should have mentioned, when you're doing these events, obviously you want to identify yourself as a member of the league. We do encourage all of our volunteers, if they have a name badge, wear it or make a name badge. We'll have them at all of our events, but you just want to make that person feel comfortable that you are an official representative of an organization that's certified to do that. And that's part of the intro spiel. They sit down, hi, I'm Marina, I'm with the League of Women Voters of the Fairfax area. I'm certified to assist you with this. How can we help you? And usually the first thing you're going to want to know is, are they already registered in Virginia? Now, if they know that they are, that's great. Then the next thing so we're going to go, yes, they are registered in Virginia. They may have just moved to their residence. Then you can go, if they have a Virginia issued driver's license or just a Virginia DMV issued ID. It's called, it's an ID. sometimes they call it walker's license, but if they have that, then you're good. You can go and use the online portal to update their information, to confirm their registration, everything you can do online. So those are the two things you need. Are they already registered in Virginia, or do they have a Virginia issued ID? If they don't, or if they're, so let's say the answer is, I'm not sure. And then you say, well, how long have you lived here? They may or may not be sure. So then what you're going to do is if you can find out if they're registered by going to the online portal. And this is why it's really helpful to have people with laptops. All you need to check the registration, are they registered, yes or no, is the last four digits of the social security number and the jurisdiction where they were registered before. Now, sometimes people don't remember what their old address was. Was it Fairfax County? Was it Fairfax City? Was it somewhere else? So that's why we ask them for whatever former IDs, old driver's license, anything like that. You can find it out. If they have a Virginia issued ID, driver's license, you can register them online. You can actually also then do an absentee ballot request online. And I'm going to take you through those screens, what that looks like. If they don't have an ID or they are new from another state, unless they happen to have gotten a driver's license since they've moved, you're going to go back and you're going to do our usual, which is paper forms. Anybody getting a paper form is going to need a voter registration receipt. Anybody we're doing voter registration for on a paper form, we're also going to offer them an absentee ballot application, and I'm going to go through that. At the bottom of the list, at the very bottom, you'll see there's that senior receipt that I mentioned before. Absolutely everyone that's going to walk out of there is going to get that, okay? Everybody is going to get a special receipt. We call it a senior receipt. It's just a memorandum of the conversation. So they have a record of what it is you did for them. Because trust me, an awful lot of people will remember they talked to someone, but they're not sure exactly who, and they're not sure exactly what. And this way they have something to refer to. And that has really answered a lot of problems. So, and then we obviously also give everybody some election information about the upcoming election. Okay. When you're working with someone online, should you find that wonderful, these are my favorite because they're very quick and easy to help. If somebody's got a Virginia issued ID, you're going to go to vote.elections.virginia.gov, this / voter information. That's the citizen portal. I'm sure you've all seen it. I always tell our volunteers, if you're doing this, just bookmark that page because you're going to be using it a lot. We always ask the voter for explicit permission to access the records, because when you're going on the portal, it's going to say, are you this person? And you may be the person pushing the buttons, but you're doing it on behalf of the voter. And you can do that, but you have to get their explicit permission to do so. And then as you go through the form, just say, I'm going to get on the online portal. It's the Virginia Department of Elections. Do I have your permission? Okay, yes. Okay, I'm going to read you the questions. Please answer. And this is again why we said we try to have a little bit of privacy. And with the online portal, you can update the registration and you can request their absentee ballot. And again, as I mentioned, everybody's going to walk out of there with the senior receipt. Okay, so this is the portal, and I'm assuming, and I can't see you all because I'm looking at the slides too, but I'm assuming most people have been on the online site at some point or another and know what this looks like. Again, to check registration status, which is really helpful, all you need is the last four digits of their social security number and their date of birth and the jurisdiction where they were previously registered. It looks like this. So you get the first name, the last name, the date of birth, the last four of their social, and that locality, where were they previously registered. If they remember that, if they know that, great, you're all set. And then you can just hit submit. And again, I always tell people, I put the information that you gave me. I'll turn the computer, show them the screen. We're good. Yes, hit submit. And then you'll be able to see, this is me. I just printed this up so I would have something to show you. And this is the screen you're going to get if they're already registered in the state of Virginia. And what's really wonderful about the screen, pay attention to this when you're confirming their registration, it's going to come up with the screen. If they are already on the permanent absentee list, there will be a banner across the top of the screen right here where it says Department of Elections, they said this person is on the permanent absentee list. That is hugely helpful because you can then tell that person, I've checked your record, make sure the address is where they are currently living. And I'm going to give you a little cheat sheet for how to know that because a lot of people, it's like, I don't know, what's the address here? We're going to give you the address where they're living currently, so you don't have to keep looking it up. But check to make sure the address is correct. Tell them, I see your name. You are a registered voter. You are registered at this address. Read them the address, make sure they're happy with it, and say, okay, you're all set. And I see you are already on the permanent absentee list. You will get a ballot this fall. That person is done. You don't let them walk away. You give them what? A senior receipt. But you've done what they need. And I will show you what on the senior receipt, what you're going to mark so they have record of that. Any questions on this portion before I move ahead? Okay. All right. Now, if you're going to register someone online, you are going to need, and that anybody you're registering online, you're going to need that Virginia issued ID, their entire social security number. To confirm their registration is only the last four of the social. To register someone, you need all four, all digits of the social security number, their date of birth. And then again, I affirm with them, get a positive affirmation. May I fill this out for you? I'm going to check that you're consenting that your DMV issued ID can be used for your registration purposes and that you understand that all of this information is subject to the Privacy Act, and then hit next. And then, this is very similar. The rest of the online registration works very much like a paper voter registration form. So you will recognize all of these. The nice thing about this is, unlike with the paper form, where it's easy to kind of get eye glaze or miss something that's important, this won't let you skip anything. If you don't fill out a field that's actually required, it will not let you go forward and it will tell you, oh, you got to fill this out. So it's kind of nice. It's a little security there that you're not going to have a rejected application. This is the next field. You're going to fill in their address. Again, I'm going to show you it. We have a little cheat sheet for where to find their address. Now, this particular version of the slide was done for our college student voter registration training. So most of the people that you are going to be helping register do receive mail at their address. So ignore that big green arrow and the checkbox where it says I cannot physically receive mail at my current address, because that will not pertain to most of the people that you are working with. And then just like on the paper form, it's not mandatory, but highly recommended that people give phone number and email. You can see how outdated this is because it still asks for fax numbers. I don't think anybody uses fax numbers anymore. Most of the folks that you're going to be working with are not going to be interested in being an election officer, but feel free to ask them if they'd like to check that box. Okay, so now this is the screen at the end of that whole process. It will give you all of these bars. This is voting eligibility, identity, mailbox, mailing address, contact information. You can click through every one of these. Again, I turn my laptop to the voter and say, I'm just showing you, I have filled this out, your direction. Can you just look and make sure that this is all okay? And they'll say, oh yeah, no, I'm sure it's fine, just go ahead. But I always give them that option. And then at the end, I read them this last thing. Okay, the last part is you have to swear under felony penalty for making willful, blah, 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 blah. And just read them. May I check the box for you? Yes. And then you hit submit. It will not let you process, complete the form until you hit that. And please don't forget to hit submit at the end of the thing, because otherwise, if you don't hit submit and you just start working with the next person, that information will not have gotten saved. So make sure you're hitting submit. And then you're going to get the option, would you like to vote absentee by mail? Now, for the senior resident, people live in senior residences, a lot of times they'll give you the, I like voting in person. It's really important to me. And I'm going to go. And I said, that's great. But just keep in mind, we've had blizzards, we've had rainstorms. What if you fall and you twist your ankle or you hurt your wrist or something like that, and you're not going to be able to make it to the polls? Um, Being on the permanent absentee list is something that you can choose to do. You can always decide to come back off of it, or you can decide to do absentee just for this election. But we kind of encourage people to consider the option for the permanent absentee list. And as I tell them, Virginia is confusing. We have an election every single year. If you come from another state, that may be news to you. But in Virginia, you have the opportunity to vote every single year. If you want to be sure you're never missing an election, consider this option. And we must be pretty good at sales because most people end up deciding to do that. And I tell them, you'll get the apps, you'll get the ballot. If you decide you still want to go in person, we're going to give you the information about where you can go do early voting or early election day voting, but just take the ballot with you. You still have that option. You're not giving up any options, but we do encourage them to try to register, go for the absentee by mail. So, and again, this is that screen that comes up, the election portal. If you've got somebody who's registered already and they just want to vote absentee by mail, you can just check the box that option. Okay, so this is the choices you get. You can vote absentee for just the next election for the permanent absentee list, or they can say they don't want to, and we give them that. Remember, in the state of Virginia, we never ask people's party affiliation. We don't register by party, but if you want to vote by mail, then you have to specify if you want to vote in the primaries. And if you do want to vote in the primaries, then you have to choose one or another party. You can't vote in both primaries. And sometimes people are a little reluctant to tell you. And I say, this information does not go any further. It's not shared with anyone else. It does not obligate you to vote for that party in the general election. But if you want to vote in a primary, you've got to pick one or the other. You can't have both. And a lot of people say, I don't want to be bothered, but whatever, you got to record their choice. This screen is very important and it will come up next, and that is the question about assistance. Anybody who has difficulty with reading or writing or just needs a little bit of extra help with the ballot, we always say, will you need help with filling out your ballot? Because if they do require assistance, you need to check that they're going to need assistance with the ballot. If it's a print disability, like they can't read well or they can't, they're not comfortable filling it out, then you check that box. If they have another disability where they're unable to answer, to fill out the ballot appropriately, you can check that. But what this will signal is that when the registrar mails their ballot out to them, there is a special form that has to be included with their ballot for the person who is going to be assisting them with filling out the ballot. So you've got to ask. And most people are going to be pretty quick about telling you whether they need the help or not. And again, same review screen comes up for the absentee ballot applications, and you can turn your computer to them and show them, okay, this is what I filled out at your direction. Is everything okay? And then swear and affirm, read that to them and hit submit. Okay, so that's just really quick and easy how you do voter registration, how you do absentee ballot requests online. It's quite straightforward and it doesn't let you make mistakes, which is really nice. So we encourage that whenever possible. It means their applications already submitted to the Department of Elections. Obviously, we have our fallback, our tried and true trusty paper registration forms. We'll discuss in a moment about whether or not, no, let me do this now. A lot of people will have been registered in Virginia in the past. They may not have their Virginia driver's license anymore, or they can't provide all the information that you need to look them up in the online portal. Unless you are sure that they're already registered in Virginia in the past, you should go ahead and fill out a voter registration form for them at the new address. There is a spot on the Virginia absentee ballot application that will allow them to do just an address change. But we were told by our registrars that the safest thing to do is to go ahead and fill out a new voter registration form unless you're sure that they are in the Virginia, in Veris, in elects system already. And if they are, then you're probably going to be able to just finish doing everything online. So unless you're sure that they're in the system, go ahead and submit a separate voter registration form for them. Obviously, if they came from another state, you're going to check box number 5. I'm currently registered in another state, their prior state. But what I've been doing just as if you did the vote, and I'm going to say you all just did the Virginia voter registration training in the last few weeks because you had to renew it July 1st. And if you didn't, I won't call you out, but please make sure that you have renewed that. But you will see in several places, they warn you, do not try to register anyone who's already registered. So just to reassure everyone that we're not trying to double register people, what we do is if people already say, I've been registered in Virginia, we just say, registered in another state, cross it out, just put Virginia and just say address change only. And that flags it to the registrars that we know this person's been registered in the past, but it's just an address change and everything is on the up and up. So, and we use the highlighted form so nobody misses anything important, hopefully. So this is, and I wanted to go over this because all of you I know the voter registration form, but you may or may not have had a lot of experience with the absentee ballot application, the paper version. So just like I showed you, the voter registration portal online is very similar to the paper voter registration form. The absentee ballot application paper is very similar to what we already went through for the online, but we're going to go over this so you understand carefully because this seems to be the area where we have the greatest number of questions. Straightforward, last name, middle name, blah, blah, blah. It says last 4 digits of the Social Security are required. Give them the whole Social Security number. Okay, you already had it because you just got it off the you just filled in the voter registration form for this person. Odds are good. So give them all the information and give them the birth year. You got it. It's going to make their job quicker. They're going to find them in the system much quicker. Please just give them what you have. Residence address, that's going to be where they're living currently. And remember, I told you we're going to have a trick, so you don't have to keep asking, what's the address for this location? We'll show you. Now, questions 3 and 4 are both highlighted or they're in blue, indicating that's something you've got to fill out. But it's actually an either or. You either do question 3 or you do question 4. Question 3 is absentee ballot for just one election, presumably the upcoming election. Now, Fairfax, we got a little bit of an issue because we're going to be doing these events in July and August. We have an election on September 9th for the 11th congressional. So that's going to be a little bit of a question. If you have somebody who wants to vote in the special election and in the general election, I would tell them get on the permanent absentee list because the timeline between the two is relatively close. But if it's just a single election, the November general, just fill in the date. It's going to be November 4th, 2025, and the jurisdiction. So we work primarily in Fairfax County. If we do anything special in residents in Fairfax City, I'll make sure our volunteers know that. And then it's either 3, 1 future election, or 4, the permanent absentee option. And then again, we have that question, which we only ever ask for absentee ballot applications. Do you want to vote in the primary, yes or no? If you do, which party? Ballot mailing address is only going to be, is not going to apply to most of the people that you're going to be working with, so you can ignore that. even though it's highlighted kind of in blue. Contact information is listed as optional. Do not treat it as optional. Give them whatever you have. Now, I will also tell you with the seniors, I always say, do you use your email much? And if they say, well, my son will come and check my emails, or, don't bother to do that. If they happen to have a cell phone, and many do, in the independent livings, but if they're in assisted living, they may not, so then don't bother. Okay, we're going to skip to the next slide for question. Okay, no, let's do it here. 7, change of address. This has been a question for a lot of people working in these these types of events. If you're filling out a regular paper voter registration form, and you have that already, you don't have to do the address change. This is only if they're not filling out a voter registration form, and if you are absolutely 100% certain that they are already a registered voter in Virginia. That's the only time you would use 7A. The better way to do it, the more belt and suspenders, if you will, is to fill out a voter registration form. Military and overseas voter is not going to apply to this group. Again, this is the next area that requires, causes a lot of questions. Our volunteers are often really anxious about this assistance with ballot or assistance with this form question. Assistance with ballot is exactly what we just went over with the online thing, which is if they have trouble seeing, if they have trouble writing, if they're going to need assistance, you check the box, and they will then get that extra form for the assistant to fill out when the ballot comes. This print disabled voter is only if people want to get their ballot sent to them by email. And that's probably not going to be anybody you're going to be dealing with. So visual difficulties, printing disabilities, reading disabilities, that's going to be that first checkbox. The assistance with this form, we went over this really carefully with the registrar to confirm that our interpretation is correct. The only time you, as a volunteer, helping someone with voter assistance, the only time you have to fill in your information if they are physically unable to sign. Now, you can have people with strokes or people who are completely blind and are unable to make an X, and you're going to fill that part out then. But if it's simply a matter of making it less painful and less for them and less painful and time consuming for you, you say, may I help you fill out this form? You do not need to fill out the assistance part. You are just acting at their direction as long as they're able to just still sign in Section 8. And that is obviously obligatory because they are swearing or affirming under felony penalty that all the information is correct. If they can sign or they can make a mark, you do not have to fill in this assistance thing. And I know that's been a cause for a lot of questions in the past, and I just want to make sure that people working with us understand that. So again, 7C is do they need systems with the ballot? 7D is only to be filled out by you. And mind you, I don't know if I can go backward in this. I may not. Oh, okay. Oh, I did. Okay. When you're filling this out for someone who's unable to write or unable to sign for whatever reason, you're giving your name, your address, all of that. So it's not theirs, it's your contact information. So we wanted to be sure that if we're asking our volunteers to fill that information in, that they're doing it when they really legally necessarily need to, and it's going to be a relatively small number of the people you're helping. So as you know from your training, by law, everybody who we collect a paper voter registration form has to get a receipt by law. And that is, something we cannot overlook. We have these really nicely printed up voter registration receipts for our league. It's got all the information that would be required for our new citizen events and our school events. They're much more substantial. They're kind of on more cardboardy, thicker paper. Anyone you collect a paper voter registration form is going to get one of these. Do not forget that. We are legally liable if we are not giving out receipts. We do not detach the little receipt from the bottom of the voter registration form. And now, at long last, after I've been talking about it for the last 40 minutes, this famous senior receipt. This is what we give to absolutely everybody that we interact with. And the reason we do that is because we have found that people walk away from you and they're like, wait a minute, what did I just do? Or their kids come and the resident says, I'm so excited, I'm registered to vote in Virginia, everything, and they're going to say, wait, who did that? And what information did you give? I mean, there's so many senior scams. I get it. There's a lot of anxiety about this. So this is our way of making sure there's a record, a memorandum of the conversation. It will give them all the information you need. And let's just go over the form. It tells them the date of the upcoming election, which offices are going to be on the ballot. We fill in their name and the date, and you can see it's got our logo at the top. So anyone asking, what did you do, Mom? They can just show them this receipt. It's illegal women voters in the Fairfax area. And then the volunteer will check, the volunteer will check, did they submit a voter registration form and or an absentee ballot, either online or paper? If it's an absentee ballot, permanent, or just the upcoming November election. This way, they know exactly what they've asked for. Or did you just confirm it? It's like you didn't submit anything new. You just looked online for them. Oh, you're all set. You got your absentee applications, or automatic, you're going to get it. So again, this is an easy form for you to fill out. You hand it to them. What's really, I think, helpful about this, we also tell them when the absentee ballots will be mailed, because that's their next question. Well, when am I going to get it? And a lot of people are like calling us up weeks later. I never got my absentee ballot. It's like, put it on the form. It's not going to be mailed till September 19th this year. And then we also remind them that they have to provide a year of birth and the last four of their Social Security on the absentee ballot envelope when they mail it back. In Fairfax County, we have 3 different locations for early voting, starting 45 days before the election, then generally about 2 weeks or 10 days prior to the election. We have a total of 15 sites around the county for people to do early voting. If they want to do early voting in person, we give them, by looking up the address of the residents, we give them their closest early voting location with the schedule. And then we remind them, if they want to vote in person, they can bring their absentee ballot with them and just get it voided there. We also will then print on this, and this is done obviously separately for every residence, because every residence is going to be different. We give them, where is your election day polling site? So we look that up, we give that to them. So this is like basically a one piece of paper, tells them what they did today and everything they're going to need for being able to cast their ballot. You will see at the bottom is the name of the residence where we are working and the address. I've been telling you all along that you're going to have the address. This is going to be available at every one of your senior events that Fairfax is organizing for you, because what we were finding is we would have to ask someone at the place, what's the address here? What's the zip code? And, hand it out to everybody, and it would get lost, and then we'd have to ask again. So it's going to be on every single one of these senior receipts that you are going to give every person you talk to, because that way they're going to have a record, and you've also got your little cheat sheet for the address. And then we give them the information on how to contact our local registrar for information, questions about the election. If they have any questions about this form, say a family member says, who is this and what did you do with my mother? They can contact us that way. Again, if you're going to use this going forward, folks from other leagues, just remember you got to update this for every residence that you go to, because at least more often than not, they'll have a different polling site on election day. everybody gets, everybody likes tchotchkes to take home with them. So we give them our whatever local handouts we have, information about the upcoming election. We give them our Fairfax Facts, which is a printed brochure with contact telephone information for all their local electeds, some other stuff from the League of Women Voters. Don't fall for misinformation. Just a reminder that many residences where it's assisted living or they're nursing homes, you may be, or rehab places, you may be going to people's bedsides to help. Not everybody's comfortable doing that, and I understand that. But generally, we have at least one or two people who are willing to do that. This is Sonia Charles, who is one of our most eager volunteers. Sonia is constantly raising her hand to volunteer for everything. And this little lady was 101 years old. Uh, and she remembered when she was not able to vote. She was legally, as a Black woman in Virginia, was faced with discrimination from being able to cast her ballot. So she's 101 years old. She's like, I'm not missing an election now. So Sonia was nice enough to go and get her registered to vote. People are, unlike the high school students where their level of interest in voting is barely measurable. Seniors know how important the vote is. And I tell the young people that all the time. It's like, the reason senior citizens, older people like me, vote is because we know how it works. We know how important it is. But people are always incredibly grateful after these events. They know they're going to be able to vote. Often they'll tell you, I've been a lifelong voter. I was really worried if I was going to be able. You've made that possible. Thank you very much. And obviously, post-event, you're going to do what you always do, which is make sure that everything is getting submitted to somebody's got responsibility for bringing the forms to the registrar's office. And again, because of that issue of resident director calling and saying, hey, the people you helped never got their absentee ballot. If you got that little list from your volunteers at the end of the day, you've got a list of everybody who helped and exactly what you did. It's going to save you a lot of sleeplessness. These are lessons learned the hard way, I can assure you. After the event, when we're leaving, I always talk to the activities director and say, here's some extra voter registration forms. Here's some absentee ballot applications. If you have people moving in after we've been here, feel free to give them out. If you have any questions, you can contact us. We'll walk you or them through it. We give them information about how to reach the league, how to reach the registrars. We talked about this stuff already. Okay. And that is voter registration for senior residences in a nutshell. These are some pictures we've taken at residences over the years. The gentleman in the lower right-hand corner was a first-time voter. He was well into his 70s. He said he'd never really gotten a chance to register to vote before. These are wonderful and very rewarding events. So I encourage you, if you haven't started, as your league isn't doing this, by all means start, because it's very rewarding. Your registrars will be appreciative. Your senior citizens will be appreciative. So with that, look at that. I've actually even got us in under time, which is like really amazing for me. I'm going to look at the things in the chat. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just gonna, please, from here on in, raise your hand and ask questions, but let me just go through the questions in the chat first, and then we can do some back and forth after that. Does the person need to request that we write for them, or can we? No, you can offer. Absolutely. It's like, may I help you with that? Would be easier, and I mean, I've seen some poor people, they're really struggling, or the writing's going off the line. It's like, the registrar's going to have a hard time reading that. Would it be easier for you if I filled it out? And, if it's okay with you, I will do that. So you can just go ahead and offer it. They'll be appreciative. Will they receive absentee ballots for the September 9th special election? Yeah, if they're on the permanent absentee list and they're in the 11th congressional district, they will receive an absentee ballot for that. Okay, Chris, do you encounter any residents who have guardianship and therefore, yeah. This is a really good question. And this is, I tell a resident director, if you have somebody who's in guardianship, please, that's really somebody we need to, if we know that, we should not be registering them. It's part of the deal, right? You're not supposed to register anybody who is, not to be legally able to do that. Um, we've had we've had questions where somebody says, well, I just have someone as my financial power of attorney. They have not lost their right to vote. And if there's any question, then we'll go ahead and submit the paperwork for them because it's not our distinction to make. And we don't ask to see, their guardianship papers. That's not our role. We are there, to facilitate people who want to be able to vote. Um, and I'm curious if anybody's had experience at senior residences and run into this situation. If you have other thoughts about that, Chris has done more voter registration than most people on the East Coast. So maybe you've got some further thoughts about that. But I generally, we will tell them if they're under guardianship, please, you know, let us know so we don't inadvertently do something. But if there's any question, go ahead and submit. Chris, did you have any thoughts or did you walk out?
No, I'm
Okay,
here. Thanks. No, I haven't encountered that.
okay,
The people I work with generally have their rights removed because of felony convictions.
right.
So,
Yeah, I
but
know
I was,
you're, yeah, and
yeah,
they're usually very aware of that.
yeah,
But for the most part, we're not going to be in a situation where we're asking people to document that their
right.
compass mentis to do that. If we can get the law changed so that it has to be a specific legal decision that they've lost their right to vote, that would certainly make it a whole lot clearer.
That
Um,
would be better.
I know,
That's our
I know.
goal.
And the league is actively advocating for that, thank goodness. But we're not there yet. Okay, let me get back to
Thanks.
questions on the chat. Fran, I see you. Let me just, before I
Okay,
lose track, because
okay.
I'm gonna get to you, I promise. Let's see. Okay, do you have any senior residents ask you to come back and help residents complete absentee ballots? If so, how do you handle those requests? We've not had that for people to ask. That's not, they don't need us really to do that. Although I have to say, we were joking about it. The league has phone number if you have questions about the election. And there are people who will call you up and say, how should I vote? Who should I vote for? It's like, okay, whoa, that's not our job. So anybody who needs assistance with filling out the ballot, anyone can help them. They have to say who they are, but I tell them it can be a family member, it can be a staff member. And we always actually mention to the activities folks, if you get people getting a absentee ballot who need assistance, you can help them fill it out. So we generally don't. Now, I will say that when we were doing these events later in the fall, people would come to us with their absentee ballot and say, I need help with this. Can you help me? And, obviously we're there to assist people. And if necessary, we will do that. So we have done that. But that's not a reason to make a special trip back. Let's see, where am I? Can we get a copy of your slides? Yeah, absolutely. This session is being recorded and it will be available. I also am more than happy to share any of this. Let's see. If an error is made on the paper application, should you discard the application? No, you don't have to do that. You can, if it's like big mess, then yeah, just rip it up. Make sure you are destroying that. And like, we'll ask for a shredder because you can't simply tear up something that's got somebody's social security number and throw it in the trash. But if it's an error, you can put a line through it, circle it, and I generally get the voter to initial it that, that they're okay with this correction so that, and that will pass muster. You don't have to start all over again. Okay, that finishes the ones I see in the chat. So now, anybody, Fran, you were next.
I've got a couple of things. I missed what you said at the very beginning about memory care units.
Yeah, I mean, people who are in nursing care or assisted living, we're very happy to help them. But if they're specifically in memory care, we generally try to avoid going in there because if they're in memory care, they're probably not, there may be a real question about whether or not that's appropriate for us to be. And then we would have to have that discussion about whether or not they're in guardianship. Now, if a family member says, hey, mom's in memory care, but she knows who she wants to vote for, and can you register her to vote? We'll do that. But we're not going to go to a memory care unit where people are there specifically because they have cognitive issues and then get into that discussion because of the potential fraught nature of that. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'd like to add one thing that I learned the other day. I had somebody that was receiving absentee ballots. She was on the permanent list, and she wanted not to do it that way anymore. So,
Ah,
okay. So, and you cannot do that online. You have to submit a paper form in order
yes,
to come off the permanent list.
yes. And
So,
actually, I'm looking in my bag because I have that form to show you. I didn't make a slide of it because it comes in so infrequently.
yeah.
Permanent absentee voter change form. So yeah,
Okay.
it has to be a paper form. And you can actually download that off of the elect website, where they,
Right.
in the first column, it says registration and it says voter forms. This form, you can download it. But yeah, more often we're putting people on the permanent list rather than taking them off. But you're right. Yeah, it's got to be a paper form. And here's one of the reasons we are so like overly perhaps compulsive about documenting what we have done with people is because the registrars tell us people are calling them up and saying, I got this ballot. I never asked for the ballot, and they've forgotten that they asked for the permanent absentee list. So that's why that little senior receipt where it's an memorandum of conversation to give them and their family something to look at and say, okay, this is what you did that day. And we give it to them as they're leaving, so they can't say, well, nobody told me that's what you did. It's right there.
My last question is I live here at the Fairfax, and which is one of the places that we register voters, and I have had several residents call me and say they got a form from the Fairfax Registrar's office that because they changed and had not voted in a federal election yet, they had to submit something with their proof of address on it.
That's
And
an
that is their opportunity when you're at that stage. A lot of times they won't have a driver's license or ID, and the only thing we were able to find was a bank statement that had it on it. But I was thinking if there was some way they could have like their their senior residence bill, let that be one of the forms of ID. But I assume at this point it's not.
Yeah, I don't believe that would work. Bank statements will work.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's true. If you are coming in from a different state and you are registering um, uh, to vote for the first time, absentee, you're going to register to vote, and you've never shown an ID form if you don't have the DMV one. And again, this is why we try to do the online as much as possible. Then it does require for the federal election that you have to show some form of ID. But we kind of let the registrars, because they're the ones that are determining whether or not that person needs it or not. And again, it doesn't apply to everyone. And it's it would be, I think, more confusing for people that we're trying to register. I think it's better to let the registrars make that determination and but you're right, for seniors, they may be confused by that. It might be
What I
something.
was able to do
Yeah, go
is I
ahead.
called the registrar's office and they let me submit for the person to submit a copy of their address. And so I was able, I did it through an email. I said, they are asking me to submit this for them. And so we were able to get the process taken care of. And the absentee ballot people at the registrar's office were wonderful. They were very, very helpful to help us get that worked out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think what we'll do, because you've raised this, is when we are finished with our registration, is give the activities director a heads up that this may come up when people get their absentee ballots, that they may be requested to do that. And we'll add that to the list of instructions we're giving them. Like, if you have this, this is what you should do. Call the registrar's office and figure out what they'll accept. So. Great. Any other
That's it for me.
questions? Yes, Francis.
Yeah, actually, the other Fran on this Zoom call.
Oh,
Anyhow, I'm with the league out in Prince William County in Fauquier. And I just wanted to comment on this is only my second year with the League of Women Voters. And everything you have outlined here in the slides and in your discussion are excellent. And last year, I went with Carol Noggins, who's very experienced out here. We went to the Wellington, which is a residence for people, that need assistance, et cetera. And everything you mentioned is correct. All the information we needed. Number one, it was difficult for me. That was the first time I was presented with people that were in various stages of aging. And of course, I'm a senior myself. So that's something, like you said, not everybody's equipped to handle that. That can be a little rattling. And then the same thing, like you said, any number of people in the room at the same time, you have to have lots of help. Nobody had a laptop with us, but I had my smartphone and I was constantly looking up online voter information, which at least helped us. And so we did everything by paper, and Carol takes everything down to the registrar in Manassas, then like within, yeah, she's excellent. So she was a great tutor for us. But anyhow, thank you so much. And I'm glad that this is all available afterwards, because this was very, very helpful. Everything you outlined is exactly what I experienced.
yeah. It's a very challenging population. And, we're
Yes.
really fortunate. Like I said, we've walked in where there are 50 people waiting to be helped, and they all want to be helped first, which makes it challenging. But we have a number of really dedicated volunteers, many of whom are on the call today. And it allows us to assist them. But there are people who just love doing this work. It's very different than working with high school seniors. Rewarding, both are rewarding in their own ways. But I encourage, anyone else wondering about whether or not it's worth jumping in, you'll never have more appreciative voters. They're really tremendously happy to get the assistance. So
What was interesting to me is I did human resources for the government for 30 years. And that's a totally different population, even though some of them could be contrary and difficult. It's a totally different population than what you're dealing with in a senior center. So I found myself exhausted from it. But when Carol needed help, a week later, we went back. And so it was very fulfilling. So thank you once again.
oh, my pleasure. Anyone else with any questions? I would like to point out that for the Fairfax County people, we have a Sign Up Genius for the residences we already have on our schedule, and we expect to be adding more. I got a couple of blank spots. You're now all experts in this. You're ready to go. So please check the newsletter this Saturday that will be coming out. And if you can, sign up to come and help us. We can always use some extra hands, and there'll be lots of opportunity.
I
All
have a
right.
quick question. Should we
Yeah.
just show up with our laptop? Would that be helpful? Or are you gonna, I mean, I don't know how that works. If we have a laptop, should we just show up with it?
Yeah, so what I do is prior to when we put up the Sign Up Genius, like 48 hours before the event, you'll get an email saying, hey, remember you signed up, and I will be specifying what it is we need and inviting those people who have laptops and who are comfortable with using them to do this kind of work. Some people, don't want to. And you, as Fran, the other Fran said, you can do it on a phone, but it's a heck of a lot easier. And what's nice is then you can turn your laptop to the person, to the voter, and say, are you good with this? This is what I put in for you. And it keeps them actively involved in that process. So laptops are way better than iPads or phones. So, okay. All right. Well, I will let everyone go, and I want to thank you all for your time and your attention. I hope you found it useful, and we'll see you out there registering voters soon, I hope.
Great
Take care.
information. Thank you, Arena.
Our pleasure.
Irina, I was just going to tell you one thing quickly. I'm
Yeah.
going to bring some numbers, laminated numbers, which will hopefully help the next time. So, hi, Chris
Laminated
and
number.
Candy, to hand out at the beginning.
Oh, the
When
bakery
people
numbers.
first
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
my
going to hand
God.
them out numbers, and then they'll know who's first.
I think that's a
just
brilliant idea. Brilliant
I
idea.
just have to get there an hour early. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.